property along Southwest End Boulevard and Walnut Street, looking to do, they're calling it Liberty Apartments, and they're looking to rezone that. So again, proposed land use meets the city's plan, and again, that was approved. A more interesting one, perhaps, was a request for a special use permit to revisit the issue of shipping containers as it relates to indoor decorations. So that one also was approved by the P&Z. I do want to point out that what they are proposing to do is not use a shipping container as part of construction, but as an artistic element. They remove the doors, the ceiling, the floor, and they're just going to use the walls to help offset part of the restaurant that's going in down on Seymour Street. Again, they're removing the porous material in terms of the floors and the ceiling. That one also, a special use permit was recommended. There was a request by the new Buffalo Wild Wings that's going in near the theater to move some of the allotment for signage on the streets to the backside, and so the south and the west side of the building. Again, that stays within the city's allotment of total signage allowed for a street frontage, approved by the P&Z Commission. And then phase 3 of the Collins Mill subdivision, which is off of Old Hopper. They submitted their third plat revision, and again was approved by the P&Z unanimously.
Okay. Questions, comments? I think the Sugar Fire project will be on
Come here next meeting.
Come here next meeting, so we'll be aware of that. It should not be an issue. Any other questions of Mr. Skinner? Thank you very much. Short and sweet. Thanks. Annual audit. John? You're just gonna sit, huh?
Just send him up.
Welcome again.
Well, I'll try to be as brief as I can. I'm not sure I can make it quite as fast as the last one. I don't want to keep you here any longer than I have to.
All right.
I do appreciate the chance to come do the audit again this year. For those of you who've heard me talk about the audit report, this is going to sound like old news. The results of our audit were pretty much the same as they were from the year before. A couple of things I'm required to mention to you whenever I'm talking about an audit report. We have 3 reports that we've issued. The first report is on the financial statements. It explains that the city is responsible for the financial statements. My job as the auditor is to give an opinion on whether or not they're fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. It goes on to explain the standards that I adhered to while I was conducting my audit, and then it follows up with the actual opinion. The wording says that it is my opinion that these financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. That's the technical language. That's an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. That's the one that everybody wants. It goes on to explain that there's a lot of additional information in the bound document, in addition to just the financial statements. Part of that information is not really subject to the audit, so there's some explanation there that calls out those specific pieces that our opinion's not actually covering those items, but it does explain that we've looked at them. If we'd seen anything that looked out of place or not appropriate, that's something that we would have worked out with the city before it actually became a bound document. And then the last part of that report explains that there is a lot of additional information in that bound document that is related to the audit, and that we are applying our procedures to that information the same as the financial statements, and that our opinion also extends to that information. So it gets into the detail, tells what's covered and what's not. It's just generally the same type of information as before. So that's the first report that we've issued. On the financial statements, unmodified opinion, that's the one you want. The financial statements themselves follow. I know that you're all aware of the financial statements, the financial condition. I don't want to have to repeat back to you what that is. That could take a long time. One thing I would like to pass along to you is that we made no recommendations for adjustments to those financial statements. I like to pass that along whenever I go out to work on an audit. A lot of places where I go to be able to give that clean opinion on the financial statements, we got to make adjustments first, and we got to get them right before we can put that opinion on it. I like to be able to tell you that we recommended no adjustments, and offer that to you to kind of let you know the reliability of your financial statements as the year goes on without needing the auditors to come in and clean things up. So I think that speaks very highly of the accounting department that you have. and to give you some assurance that this information you're relying on to make decisions is accurate as you go. That leads me into the second report that we issue. To be able to audit those financial statements, I have to understand how the internal controls work over how do we accumulate our financial information? How do we get the numbers? How do we process it and be able to make it into financial statements? I don't actually give an opinion on those internal controls, but I have to understand how they work to be able to plan the audit correctly. If I find anything that I would consider to be either a significant deficiency or a material weakness, this is where I would report it. And I'm happy to report that we found no instances of deficiencies that need to be reported with the audit. The second part of that report is similar in that I'm looking at the city's compliance with various laws and regulations, contracts, grant agreements, things that are financial in nature while I'm doing the audit. And if I would note any instances of non-compliance, this is where I would report those as well. And it also explains that we found no instances of non-compliance to be reported with the financial statements. So that's the second report. The third report, as you know, you've heard me before, this was required by the federal government. Whenever you're spending their money, they want to make sure that I'm looking to see how you're doing it. If you spend more than $750,000, a whole nother level of audit kicks in. So we look at the city's internal controls over how you're complying with the federal requirements. And then we specifically have to give an opinion on whether or not you're complying with their requirements. The two projects that we looked at specifically in detail as major programs were the highway planning and construction grant. And we also looked at the public safety partnership and community policing grants. Basically, it covered salaries for several officers. And we spent about $191,000 through that grant during the year. And the highway planning and construction grant, we looked at about $3.8 million in grant expenditures. So we were able to issue another clean opinion on the city's compliance of the specific compliance requirements that the federal government wanted us to test on these projects. We found no instances of non-compliance. And we also looked at the procedures and processes that we go through to make sure that we're complying. And we also found no instances of deficiencies in the procedures and processes. So we had no recommendations in that area as well. So another good, clean audit report. Like I said, these are the opinions that everybody wants to get. We had, as I mentioned earlier when we were going through those reports, the section that usually everybody's most interested in is the schedule of findings in the back. That schedule says that there are no findings related to the financial statements and no findings related to federal grants. And I believe we had no findings last year. So we finally got that kind of behind us. And it even says that follow-up on the prior findings is not applicable this year. So that's kind of the nutshell, hopefully quick version of what's in your financial statements. As usual, I do like to point out, and I know you've heard me say this before, but it is still the case that whenever we're working with, obviously the folks from downstairs in the accounting and finance, but we work with folks from all over the city when we're going through all this paperwork, and everybody always treats us in a very professional manner. Everybody's very helpful to my staff and my crew, and that's something I wanted you to know in case you don't always get the chance to see how things are going when you're not around. But that is the case, and we greatly appreciate that. Otherwise, I'd like to ask if anybody has any questions about what we're doing, what we're finding, what we're seeing. I'd be glad to try to.
Well, we thank you for the report, and particularly want to thank staff, for John and the whole staff for it being a clean report and their cooperation with it. So, other comments from council?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. We're
I
glad.
would comment on the federal public safety that I just asked, and it is the 3-year grant for officers. Are we in the second year of that now?
This is year 2, yeah.
It's year 2. That was for 3 officers? 3 officers. And we're working toward the end of that where we can support it?
Yep.
That's, so council, we did that with fire back
That's several years ago. We
several
did
years
fire,
ago,
and we're able to keep
and now we
those.
got, now we had the 3-year grant on police, and that's good. Any other comments from council? Jeff, thank you so much.
Well, thank you all. Thank you very much.
Okay, airport report. Bruce. Got your whole team here. That's great.
That's right. I'll start things out here. Mayor, Council, thank you very much. We'd like to appreciate the ability to allow us the opportunity to talk to you about your airport, the Cape Girardeau Regional Airport. I can tell you that we're very proud of the progress that we've made over the past several years. It's not been without a few bruises, but we have persevered, and we feel like we're running on a very rapidly moving track. Assisting me today are 2 fantastic ladies, with Katrina Amos, my deputy airport manager, and Hannah is our Hannah Ceasing, our administrative clerk. Also with me, I've got some board members. Robert Cork is my chair, Justin Albright, vice chair, Paul Mingus, and Joe Hobbs. Is anybody else here? These guys are all here to back us up. So if you got any questions at the end, feel free. I don't believe it's any secret that our airport is a major economic development tool for the Cape Girardeau region. To give you some idea, I would like to quote from an aviation economic impact study. The Missouri Department of Transportation Aviation Division performed in 2000. Keep in mind, this is 6 years old. They do these every 10 years. I wish they would do them more often, but remember, these numbers need to be adjusted upward for both inflation and a stronger economy now. But the study concluded that the 808 airports within the state of Missouri contribute over 100,000 jobs with a payroll of $3.1 billion to the Missouri economy. When all economic activities are considered annually, total annual economic output of Missouri's airports is estimated at $11.1 billion. Do we have those numbers?
We're supposed to have them up, I think we, technical difficulty. Yeah. Okay. There we go.
The study concluded that the Cape Girardeau Airport alone supports over 200 direct and indirect jobs, a payroll of 6.3 million, and a total output of 19.4 million into the local economy. Now, the value of airports and aviation goes beyond economic contributions. Aviation also contributes to the Missourians' quality of life in many ways through emergency rescue, medical flights, agricultural uses, aeronautical mapping, forestry, law enforcement, traffic monitoring, just to name a few. On the general aviation side alone, not including our newest airline service to Chicago, which we'll talk a little bit more in a little bit, the Cape Girardeau Airport sees flight activities from Menards, Procter & Gamble, Drury Hotels, Pyramid, Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital, Midwest Agrochemical, Crater Distributing, McDonald's, Allen Wire, the Southeast Missourian, the Wright Group, the Missouri Highway Patrol, the Department of Natural Resources, and a variety of area physicians. I could go on and on. Add the airline flights that we have now, and this list continues to include St. Francis Medical Center, Southeast Health, Southeast Missouri State University, and many other people that have already talked to me that they are utilizing our new service. I could list many, many more, but in the interest of time, I will stop there and say the truth is we feel we are on the cusp of significant growth in many, many areas at the airport. We would like to show you a little bit about some of the demands that have been put on the airport and the challenges that are ahead of us. And to help me with that, to get things started, I'm going to leave it over to Katrina and Hannah and let them show you what we're doing.
Welcome, Katrina.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to hear us talk about the airport. So I wanted to start off with a few things. Tenants, that's one of our main drivers for revenue. And We have 52 hangars, 9 are privately owned. We have 43 city-owned T hangars, and we have rental income of over 97,000 annually. If you look over at the base customers, you'll see from 2013 to 2017 that we've had some growth. 2014, we took a bit of a dip, but we've grown now to 77 base customers, but we're kind of stagnant there because we don't have any more room. So that's kind of one of the issues that we have that we want to talk about today. We have 2 set of T hangars that one was built in 2014 that it filled up immediately. The rest are pretty much in our community hangar, formerly known as Commander.
Another new thing at the airport, of course, is our passenger service. As you all know, we now have SkyWest operating a United Express flight from Cape to Chicago. We have 2 flights a day, Monday through Friday, 1 flight on Saturday, 1 flight on Sunday. Currently, they're actually running a $69 fare, so it's very reasonably priced. You want to hop on that. But with this new service brought a lot of updates to our terminal. We were able to put in some new furniture. So it looks very airport now. It's very professional, very corporate looking. We were also able to move around our TSA screening area. It used to be very kind of out in the open. Now we've closed it off. It's much more private. Actually kind of enlarged it a little bit so there's better passenger flow. We also upgraded our baggage handling area. It was very small with Cape Air. Obviously, there's 9 passengers. We can't have too much luggage. Now we have the potential to have quite a bit more luggage. So we've moved that around, tucked some of the other TSA screening away in that back area. And then the airline brought in a new, very modernized ticket counter. So we have this nice fancy ticket counter it looks a little bit out of place with the rest of the terminal, but hopefully we can get there, catch up to that. As far as our employment numbers, for December, we had about 439. January is 336, excuse me. These numbers are a little bit low, but with these winter months, flying into Chicago is a little bit tricky. So we've had quite a few cancellations and issues in that, but we've actually spoken with SkyWest, who said, we understand that this is a bad time of year to start, but we expect these numbers to increase, especially with increased marketing and that kind of thing. So hopefully these numbers will rise, but this is just kind of getting our foot in the door and seeing how we're doing.
On a positive note with the airline, they have taken an increase in fuel sales. So in the first 2 months of them being with the airport, they've taken what Cape Air would have used in a year. So that's very positive. We're excited about that. And I think that will be reflected in the next slide, traffic and activity. So for air traffic operations, as you can see, we are experiencing an increase beginning in 2016 and projected for 2018 will be over 29,000 of annual operations. And that is a takeoff and landing. Fuel sales in gallons, that's going back to the airline. They are taking a large amount of fuel every month. So we're excited about that. That allows us to have an increased revenue and hopefully give us the opportunity to do some of the things we're talking about later in the presentation. So to help with the air traffic operations, we have 4 different companies that are based at the airport that they, every day they're utilizing our facility. So I want to talk about them. So first up, we have Cape Air Charter. They offer flight instruction and charter operations. We have Skybound Aviation. They offer a light sport flight school. And then we also have Cape Copters. They offer a helicopter flight instruction as well as gyrocopter instruction. And they're also a Robinson 44 helicopter sales dealer. So, and then finally, in July of 2017, we added Elite Avionics, and they provide avionics services at the airport.
Okay, so on to the facilities that we would like to cover. We've kind of ranked them, well, this one isn't ranked as much, but these are the top few that we would like to stress. These include the hangars, maintenance facility, terminal, and control tower. These are all kind of old facilities that are definitely just in need of some care.
So talking about the hangars, the one pictured is one of the corporate hangars that we have. We currently have 26 occupied city-owned key hangars, 1 occupied corporate hangar, and then again, we have 19 tenants in our community hangar. And talking about the corporate hangars, they have, well, just to give you a little bit of information, they're located directly east of Cape Aviation. They were built in 1975, and currently only 1 hangar is operational. And that's because the structure is just really old. I mean, it was old when I started, and we've done everything we can to rehab it, but the truth of the matter is it has some red iron issues, and so they need to be addressed. We have a potential for $750 a month in rent, but we're currently only getting $500 a month because we have some damage to the facility. So as you see here on the screen, we have irreparable damage to bifold doors. This was a summer of 2017 event where the hangar door, it simply fell, and it almost fell on one of our employees, and it was kind of a scary thing. But we called out a company to take a look at it. He took a look at it and he said, I can't repair this. He said, this was rigged up back when we did it the first time. He said, I can't warranty it, so you're gonna need a new door. He said, but to add to that, you have a lot of structural damage, so it won't support a new door. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation. We want to repair some of these things, but in order to repair, it takes a significant amount of money. Some of these companies, they just won't warranty the work, so therefore we can't get them fixed. So, and this is just more pictures of the deterioration. Like I said, we have a lot of structural issues with the corporate hangars. And this is more pictures of the inside and the exterior. It's just not a pretty sight. When people come to the airport, I mean, those are very visible. We've thought about painting the outside, but it's like, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. I mean, you can only do so much. So.
Next up, we call them the old Air-Evac hangars. They're an 18 hangar unit built in 1994. The city took ownership in 2009. Currently, we have 6 tenants in this 18 hangar unit because most of them are inoperable. Again, a lot of it is because of the doors. We have really big, heavy doors. They're hangar doors. So if something messes up, it goes bad in a hurry. Here we have some damage to the doors. As you can see, it's kind of leaning up here. Katrina will talk more about the headers, as they're called. But we've had tenants, actually, these wheels here were put on by Papa John. He is a very bright engineering mind, but even he could not fix this problem. There's just been a lot of damage to the building itself due to its age, and so that has caused things to just not work properly. If you want to talk about the headers.
Yeah, going back to the headers, in 2009, when we took them over, Air-Evac came and they were willing to get them up to reasonable condition, for us so that we could, have revenue from all 18. And they were successful in that. When we took them over, they were all full and there was no issues. But as the years have gone on, we're having the structural issues continue. And we've done in-house maintenance to try to keep them repaired. We've called companies in and they've done what they can. But recently we had a company come out and they basically said the same thing that the overhead doors said. We can't repair these. They need to be replaced. And they were willing to give us quotes on what it would take to replace them back to where they are now, which for a new set of 18 pole barn would be roughly $600,000. So as you see, the trusses are rotted. It's in a state of disrepair. And we've tried to, do everything we can internally and soliciting other companies to come in. But at some point you have to realize, okay, we can't do anymore. We need to do something different here.
Next up, we have the former Commander hangar, which is, I'm sure, very popular. It was built in 2001. It's a 52,000 square foot building, 48,000 of which is usable hangar space, which we are using pretty much every bit of. There are 19 tenants that are in there, anything from your small little plane to a big twin engine. It's kind of just become the catch-all for everybody that was either displaced from other hangars or that has come since then looking for hangars and we don't have that availability. There is aircraft. We have a lot of our maintenance equipment is in there, as well as some airline equipment. Police and fire had some stuff in there. I believe it's been moved out. And then that Elite Avionics shop is set up down there in the office space. So it is being used to its full potential. Here are some pictures of just how tightly everything is packed in. It kind of creates more issues in an efficiency standpoint for our line guys who are out there moving aircraft around. If you've got to move 4 out to get one that's at the back, and then you got to put all those back. It's just a lot of moving parts that increase our liability and increase potential for damage.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So here also we have some examples of our maintenance equipment. This is just really the only place we have. We'll go on to discuss more of the issues with the maintenance facility, but really just having all of this in there is really what we need. We need the facility, but we also need more facilities to get the stuff that doesn't need to be in a hangar out of that hangar.
Absolutely. It really ties into our maintenance facility. As you can see, there's a snowplow in there, forklift, all of our equipment that we need to maintain the airport. With that being said, like Hannah was saying, it creates close quarters, it increases our chance of liability, and we have a lot of issues from that. This slide is a little bit out of place, but that's okay. This is just going over the cost of repairs for some of the previous structures that we were talking about. And I caution you, when you look at those numbers, they may seem a little low, but that is us applying Band-Aids to a problem. So, you know, really and truly, every time we have someone come out to take a look, whether it be the chiller or the corporate hangars or the airy bag hangars, they need to be replaced. And so that is the reason why we just, okay, we'll go, you know, fix this little part here, or we'll do this here just to keep moving. But really and truly, those are not reflective of what really needs to be done. But moving to the maintenance facility, it was built in around 1980. It's 1,800 square feet, and it has no airside access. So it's on the land side, which means that in order to get to the airfield, they have to go through the gate, which causes additional wear and tear on our gates as well, moving multiple pieces of equipment through on a daily basis. I go back to the 1,800 square feet of space. We have about 15,000 square feet of equipment. So we have grown out of it tremendously. We've upgraded to maintain our Part 139 compliance with the FAA. And so we've needed, you know, additional tractors. We've needed additional zero turns, and, you know, we've just needed additional equipment to keep up with the current demands. But we have not updated the facility to help us keep up with that. So it's an inadequate size for the equipment storage, and the pictures reflect that. And we have to store equipment outside as well. You know, with that being said, we spend a lot of dollars on this equipment, and having to store it outside, it reduces the life. So it makes us have to go out and buy equipment sooner than we have to, because we don't have adequate facilities to house it.
Okay, moving on to the terminal. As I showed earlier, we did have a lot of aesthetic updates, new furniture, things like that. We moved some walls around. But the facility was built in about 1960, 62, and most recently updated in 1992. So it's old. A lot of the facilities, the HVAC system, for example, is just very old and not working efficiently. Our bathrooms are in serious need of an update, as well as the roof and some of the flooring. We've been having some serious issues with that. Here's a graph of some of the repairs that we've done to our HVAC system. And with a total cost over the last few years of just that $54,000, that obviously hasn't done much to fix the problem, because we're still having issues. They're still getting called out, hackers called out at least once a week. We have them on speed dial. So we continue to put Band-Aids on things that we really just need to replace and to fix.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, I mean, like Hannah was saying, those are the total amounts that we've had since 2013, but that is not reflective of what we need to have done. And recently we were told that the chilling tube will have to be replaced. That's a $70,000 number. And I just want you guys to understand, you know, how much more do we keep pumping into an old system before you decide, okay, we just need to rehab the whole thing? It's an inefficient system. We don't even have HVAC in the bathrooms. They're all manual valves. So that means if it's wintertime, then you just really have heat. You don't have AC, and vice versa. You can't switch them over. In some areas we do, but for the most part, it's all manual, and it's just an inefficient system. And this is just tying back to the bathrooms. I mean, they're not the worst looking bathrooms, you know, out there, but they are outdated and they're not in line with what we want people to see when they come to Cape Girardeau for the first time. You know, they're in need of some upgrades. There's no ventilation. There's no insulation on the outside cinder block wall, and the fixtures are outdated. We also have a number of plumbing issues. You know, in '92, when the building was reconfigured, some of the lines were made dormant. So those lines have to be flushed out every 6 months to prevent an odor from coming into the terminal. You know, we have a thriving restaurant in there, and that's not very appetizing to customers wanting to come in and have fish, and that's the thing that hits you first when you walk through the door. So just more pictures of that.
Moving on to the control tower. The tower was built in 1975. It has a cab on top. Also, it has an office and some storage facility. The tower is old, and structurally it is starting to show that age. We've started a project that didn't end up being completed back in 2013 that started to fix the problem. We had some issues with the catwalk as well as the roof, and so those were repaired. We started noticing some water damage, and so that's what led to us continuing to fix that. But at some point, that project stopped, and the red iron was not completed. As a result of the red iron not being completed, we still have leaks in the cab. And one thing I will note is that we did get approved for the $130,000 in equipment that the control tower needs, and that is scheduled to happen within the next few months. My concern is that with the installation of this, you know, expensive equipment, we have not taken care of the issue of the water, and it could definitely damage the equipment once installed. That concerns me. That concerns, you know, everybody that's dealing with this, because we're excited about the upgrades and the new equipment. However, we also know that there are some issues that need to be resolved, hopefully prior to getting this equipment installed. And then just more pictures of the red iron deterioration. We're beginning to see signs of water damage again because the initial problem was not ever completely resolved. So obviously it's starting to seep back in again. So that's something that we are very concerned about with this very pricey new equipment. Okay, so that's pretty much all that we plan on covering. We put together some solutions and funding opportunities to try and figure out how to get this all taken care of. So for the control tower, and I believe Bruce is going to touch on the funding a little bit more in his summary, but we have $167,000 that we receive in an operating assistance grant from MoDOT. So we have that. We will need additional funding from the city's budget in order to repair the red iron, which is estimated at $50,000. We're going to continue with the equipment upgrade, which is around $130,000. So like I said, between the MoDOT operating assistance grant and city funding, that's how we hope to fund the issues with the control tower. And that is the most important, in our opinion, that's the most important problem that we need to address. With the T-hangers, we hope to replace the 18 area back T-hangers. We received 2 quotes. One was for a wooden structure to the tune of $600,000, or for a steel building is $1.4 million. In addition to that, we also, to meet demand, we also need to construct 14 new T-hangers within within that time frame, just to keep up. We have, it's hard to understand what our waiting list is because most people call and inquire, and if you don't have space, and they move on. So, and then moving on to, it looks like the maintenance facility.
The maintenance facility, that is actually eligible for FAA funding. However, the FAA asked that we make sure all of our other infrastructure is, up to their standard before we're able to apply for that for the maintenance facility. So we've got two numbers there for a 16,000 square foot building, and that would really just be meeting our current need. It would be 1.9 million, but to upgrade and give us a little bit more room to grow, it would be 2.5 million for a 21,000 square foot building.
Yeah, the terminal, some proposed terminal upgrades include obviously a new HVAC system, flooring upgrades, bathroom, wall coverings, or other potential expansion. We do have a terminal area master plan that kind of outlines all of the things that we would like to do around the terminal area. In order to achieve these things, there is a way we can, if we can reach 10,000 enplanements, which is 10,000 people flying out of here on the airline, then we get bumped up and reclassified as a primary airport. And this will then open us up to entitlement funds that can be used in public use areas, which would be the terminal, obviously. So that is something that we are aggressively pursuing and hope to achieve by the end of this year.
And that concludes our part, and it'll bring Bruce back up for the summary.
I like this. You're right. When Heather was here, I said, gee whiz, that's. I like that. I know we're running a little bit late. Let me, very quickly in summary, again, things are going great. I know this sounds like a little bit of gloom and doom, but it's not. I mean, we have great hangars facilities, with the exception of what these folks, these ladies just mentioned to you. You just built 10 new T hangars. So we have 20 very worthy hangars. The problem is you got air evac hangars that only 6 work. So all those other 12 planes are sitting down in Commander. Keep in mind, we recently did a survey with Cape Aviation, and for every jet aircraft we have, jet fueled aircraft that we have based at the airport that's producing, we are selling 7,500 gallons of fuel per year. That's average, and on a low lead aircraft, typically prop aircraft, we're selling roughly 500 gallons per year. Again, that's on average. So you have to add those numbers to where what the actual value of having a based aircraft is. And I'd like to leave that Commander hangar for the larger planes. Somewhere down the road, but to go briefly over the numbers, 50,000 from a safety aspect, that was the number that we put on. Anakangas had come actually a couple of years ago, so that number could be a little bit higher now. That was a 3-prong project. We were supposed to repair the roof, put in new HVAC in the tower, repair the red iron, and then buy our equipment. And somehow through the CIP process, it just kept the red iron repair kept getting thrown out. So that's where we're going back now and saying we need a red iron repair. Unfortunately, we do, as she had mentioned, as Katrina mentioned, that there are still a few leaks that we're finding now.
It's in the CIP.
I'm sorry, what?
It's in the CIP.
Air traffic control tower for 18-19.
Yeah, this year,
Okay.
60,000.
Right.
Right on.
Right.
Yeah, phase 2.
Yeah, it's in the CIP. So
We've been-
I hope they'll get it.
As you're going through this, we've been looking at the
Okay.
CIP.
All right.
Trying to-
And I've got 130,000 there with obviously with parentheses around it because that's already funded. That's in, just wanted to show it. I'm not adding that to the numbers that we need. To demo and reconstruct the old air evac T hangars, if we did it with a steel, that would be 1.4 million. The 14, and the reason I'm saying 14 rather than 10 T hangars was is what we have said, and that may be in the budget. We realize that the area that we reserve for T hangars is bigger now as we move north of the current hangars that we have, the new hangars we just built, and there's actually room for 14 there. So that number runs to about 980,000. We rented it off to $1 million to add for because you are going to have the taxiway stub built there as well. The new maintenance facility is fundable. They will fund the storage area on a 90-10 basis. So I put in that I've allowed 70% funding from the FAA because you got to include some offices, probably a restroom or two, that sort of thing, and a possible footprint that we would do with that facility. So that would really only cost us $750,000 if my arithmetic's correct. We also had to demo and reconstruct the corporate hangars. That's the $600,000 number. The terminal rehab is the same sort of thing with the FAA. You typically wind up getting about 70% funding on a terminal, sometimes as little as 50%. They will help fund your public areas. So the bathrooms would be funded, the lobbies area that work on the floor would be funded. Anything that we have a leasehold where we make money or we make any kind of revenue or private office space, they will not fund that. So it typically comes out to 70%. My only warning on the terminal rehab is that if we approach the FAA and MoDOT and say, we want to rehab our current terminal, that will probably knock you out for several years for any kind of a rebuild if that's what we do. So that's a conversation that needs to be had somewhere down the road, that we are showing $1 million for a rehab currently. So if I haven't taken, if you take those 30%, 70% out of there, you come up with $4.1 million in total that we're asking that we have some really immediate needs for when it comes right down to it, especially and those are kind of somewhat in priority. I do want other considerations, and this is some conversation we've been having with MoDOT as of recent, very recent, actually this last week. Keep in mind, they present the CIP to the FAA, and the FAA comes back and says to MoDOT, well, this is what we're interested in funding, throw the rest of it out. They've shown interest in funding an airfield perimeter fence that we've had in there forever, and something that would be discretionary funds. They have agreed to add that to their 3-year CIP. Doesn't mean we're going to get it, but it's a very positive move toward having a perimeter fence that would be funded in a 90-10 scenario, 90-10 percentage. The other thing is the terminal area master plan. I don't know yet. We're having conversations. I'm not getting that. We felt we were going to have to do a terminal area plan. Now, what that means is it's basically a facility plan saying that your airfield is, your master plan for your airfield still looks pretty good. It's still legit. And I would tend to agree that everything looks okay there for the time being. But we want to look primarily at the facilities. And we thought we were going to have that in order for them to consider funding for some of these other projects. It's sounding like that may or may not be the case now, but currently that is in their CIP at $500,000. So that again would only be $50,000 on our side. But I kind of put those two projects off to the side because those are a little bit, they're in some most immediate conversations, and I really didn't include in here. With that, I will ask any questions. Does the board have anything to add?
You know, one thing that I noticed.
Can you go back one, please?
Go ahead. When Katrina was talking, says if we get to 10,000, we got to get to 10,000. That's money.
Yeah.
My concern is, are we the $69? How many knew about that $69? Is it selling?
They're
Is it
advertising digitally, yes. Just over the last several days, we've been seeing loads more in the 20s and the upper teens.
When did it start?
It just started.
It started February 14th, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, just started.
It just started to run through the end of March. A little bit of a battle there. The only place they want to put that is digital in order to meet federal law. They say the person has to be able to tap on disclosure and get immediate disclosure statement when they read that number. I've never run into that with the other airlines, air carriers we've been involved with, but on this one.
Okay.
So I am able to announce it in person, and I'll announce it in person as much as I can. And then we're going to be doing some other advertising, but right now we need a little bit of funding on that from a marketing standpoint until I get to July. In July, the MoDOT has expressed that the Aviation Trust Fund did fulfill a $4.5 million requirement, which allows us to get some new aviation air service marketing funds. So that I can't get until July.
We got an air service marketing line item in the CIP, I see it.
That would be for the next year's budget. right? So we really don't have any funds currently, right, Bruce?
We're pretty much out of money in this year's current budget, or I mean, it's already been spent or it's been
Already been encumbered.
encumbered.
Okay.
There's a little bit there that's with our consultant services, but not much.
Okay.
And I'm talking like $2,500. Not a lot of money.
Has SkyWest money been spent?
Not all of it. They have 20,000 available. We just finished, in fact, they committed $7,000 on this digital advertising. So no, it hasn't all been committed yet. We are continuing to have a conversation with them about where to go. We are working with Valair, which is our airline consulting firm. They have proposed a new marketing plan for us to, project into those funds. But to use those funds to get to this period in between now and July. But it was less than the original 30,000, but it's still money that I currently don't have.
The advisory board had sent a letter up about some of that.
Correct.
Did that get to staff and the rest of the council? About the marketing request?
Yeah, we all got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was, and so was that asking for, between now and I guess I'm assuming July, $30,000 to $50,000?
Right.
Is that correct?
Right.
Anybody, who all do you have here? Anybody want to say anything on that? I know, Robert and Justin were pretty passionate about that.
Yeah, so that was the letter that we submitted from the airport board was in conjunction with that marketing plan that Bruce and Katrina had the consultants do. And it's basically, we were asking for some funds to get us to July when we can have the other funds from the state. Because we've got an opportunity to advertise now, if we have the money to do it, to help boost our ridership. And that's what we were asking for. If we wait until July, we're halfway through the year, and the airline, they're getting subsidy. They'll fly empty planes, but it's our opportunity to fill planes.
Let's make that concern. They got their subsidy. Now we got to get our subsidy.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like they've got the airplane, and if we don't use it, they can go somewhere else.
Yeah.
They'll find a city who wants to advertise. I mean, look at what Columbia did. I know you guys have talked about that before. Columbia put millions of dollars on the line, and they're very successful now.
It's kind of tough for us with the Essential Air Service program. Our revolving time frame comes along at the wrong time. It comes along in November. I sat down with Mr. Acton at the airline. I actually got an opportunity to go through St. George, Utah. And he said, look, we understand. He said, we like what we're seeing in the boardings 90 days out. They are moving upward, and that's what we keep an eye on. We get the fact that boardings, we would never start service in our winter month if it wasn't for the fact that the DOT, their RFP came out for us to start service December 1. We really can't change that. But we do expect things to really pick up starting in March. And I think we're going to see that happen. I'm already seeing some increases in the terminal just over the last week. But they committed $20,000 in their proposal to DOT. But keep in mind that's for 2 years. So it's not a ton of money that they are putting out there. And frankly, other air carriers that we had before Cape Air, we were lucky to do anything. Cape Air kind of spoiled us a little bit, I think. They always put in $43,000 every 2 years that they went really.
One thing I would add,
A lot of local advertising too.
Yeah, well, and a lot of that came from our budget and from the state budget.
one thing that I would add is that, looking at CIP, looking at the pictures that we had up here, whether we get to 1 million or we don't, it looks like we really need to do something with some of those facilities. And that's yet to be determined how we get a lot of that funded. You hear some of an employee almost getting hurt because of one of the, some of the insurance claim if one of those doors falls on somebody's plane. So I think even outside of getting to 10,000 and getting the million, we probably need to really look at what 19, 20, and maybe even 18, 19 on the CIP. I haven't went through it completely as far as what you know, it looks like in here T hangers
The
are
T hangers are in 21, 22,
right. You know,
10 T hangers.
I'm not convinced that
Huh?
that's.
The pole barn hangers are under facilities. Under 18.
Yeah.
I am gonna have some more conversations with DOT about the feasibility of the maintenance facility. That might be one way that we can get our equipment out of the commander. I don't know how well that's gonna go.
Okay.
Okay, so that's right. So the 18 T hangers are in 18. Good.
On the CIP, if you look at capital asset, just facilities, it was $7.2 million, 5.6 million. That's a pretty big deal. It's just a matter of prioritizing the year, what fiscal year they're going.
Yeah. Sounds like
The other thing I'd say is spending $50,000 on marketing is almost an absolute necessity. That's going to get us closer to that 10,000 boarding.
I agree.
That's a big deal. Big.
I mean, considering we've had the ridership that we've had with pretty much nothing,
Nothing.
you know? Sorry.
Yeah, well, no, I just would be careful. I mean, I knew it would take some time, so it will still take some time.
Yeah.
And I will say, as far as the airport, I'm glad that you pointed that out, Joe, that it was in facility. I think whenever we all really look, and I've told Scott Meyer this numerous times, you know, if you really look at the facilities that we've been able to put a lot of attention to, fire, police, if you really look, we're really down to the two big, you know, elephants in the room, so to speak, which the airport and City Hall.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been fortunate that we've been able to do what we would have over time, but airport and City Hall are those next things that are keyed up.
Yeah, when we show our bathroom pictures, we know it's no stranger to anybody that has an office down here.
Okay. Very good.
Thanks, guys, appreciate it.
All right. Appreciate it. And thanks, board, for being here and staff. RCH, who's RCH? You're up.
I am Dr. Sharon Braun with Community Counseling Center, Director of Public Relations, and
Chad Hartle, RCH Development.
And we are going to present a brief overview of the Cape Girardeau Committee on Housing, and then an overview of
How you doing,
the
Chad?
Liberty Apartments that we appreciate to be able to present to you this evening. Oops. Okay. The Cape Girardeau Area Housing Committee vision is that all people will be have safe, affordable, and accessible housing. And our mission is to provide a continuum of resources to assist with the acquisition of safe and affordable housing. The Cape Girardeau Area Housing Committee is comprised of 24 different organizations. And if you look at these organizations and all of the resources that we share and refer to one another in the community, it's pretty amazing. And you will hear more about this as we go along. So if you will, I think you have a printout of the PowerPoint, and so you can just take a look at these members. And I mean, it's very significant. So the Housing Committee is a collaborative network, and we identify the barriers and solutions to housing for at-risk populations who have difficulty in maintaining and sustaining independence. And it's actually the Housing Committee that spawned the Liberty Apartments. The Supportive Housing Institute, SHI, training in Jefferson City, they offered applications and 10 were accepted, but only 7 actually made it to the training. And so our Liberty Apartments was one of those. We attended 4 months of training, several days each month. And from that period of time, we have continually worked on our Liberty Apartments. So Chad Hartle with Hartle Management Incorporated and RCH Development, Al Stovering, the former director of Habitat for Humanity, Gerald Jones, who is the Community Counseling Center housing coordinator, and myself, we attended these meetings. And it was very thorough. We had homework to do. We had a lot of correspondence, telephone calls, and email correspondence over and over. One kind of a side part of this is that every team had to pick a name that best represented the team. And so ours was the Cape Area Supportive Housing, the acronym for which is CASH. So everybody really got a kick out of that, and that was brought up several times through the course of our training. So I guess if you have any questions about any of these organizations or how we network, because it's not just with housing, it's with mental health issues, it's with substance use, it's Medicaid, it's social services, it's education, and it just goes on and on and on and on. So I think it's really important that you understand that all of these agencies will be part of a referral to the Liberty Apartments. And with that, then Chad will take over and give you the really nitty-gritty.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. thanks,
Council,
Sharon.
this is on item 6 on the consent agenda, and there's more detail in of layout and everything in them.
Yeah,
in our packet.
I've got a quick slide presentation
Sure,
here.
that's fine. You bet.
Noteworthy that the Cape Area Housing Committee was formed over 20 years ago, and it is somewhat unique to the state of Missouri. It was definitely the forerunner of housing committees for communities. Now there are several others. In fact, John Fisher back here. John, how many other communities in the state of Missouri have started a housing committee since to model after the one here in Cape?
Well, right now there's one in Springfield, there is one in St. Charles County, very much modeled after the Cape one. We are trying to get one started in Columbia, and we're working to get one in the Ozarks. And a lot of it is based on the work we've done here in Cape and the housing here. Trying to form committees elsewhere in the state to bring communities together to create these kinds of projects.
Thanks, John. It's so it really is something special we have here in Cape that is being modeled in other larger communities and smaller ones in the state. I joined this committee probably 15 years ago, and we get all of the nonprofit service providers together. We talk about issues that relate to housing. And every one of these organizations have a need to take care of their clients based on a stable housing environment. They can't give their services or offer their services to their clients without stable housing. So that's what this committee has been working on for 2 decades. And Liberty Apartments represents the first foray into affordable housing. And as I go through the slide presentation, you'll see how this all dovetails into what we're talking about today. The proposed development is 40 units of affordable housing, all 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartments, slab on grade, single-story buildings, 4-plex and 6-plex design. Rents are about $500 a month and less. Here's a representative of a 6-plex building that we would be constructing. And the location is a combination of 2 parcels of ground. One parcel fronts on West End Boulevard, just south of the new Walnut Street. The second parcel is the rear portion of the Gibson Recovery Center. The Gibson Recovery Center sits on several acres, and they are a part of our committee, and they're going to be a part of this development. And they are selling us the ground, the rear, probably 2 acres of their site. We're going to combine it with this parcel on West End Boulevard. And that is this site plan that you see here. You can see West End over on the left side. The building directly below our cul-de-sac there is the Gibson Recovery Center. And they front on Linden Street. We are setting aside 10 units of the 40 for residents with mental health disabilities. We will offer on-site supportive services by the Community Counseling Center. The supportive services are voluntary to the residents. They are evaluated by licensed professionals. I think we plan to have 1 caseworker dedicated to this and 4 or 5 other workers to support that caseworker. They will have specific tailored goals for each individual, and they will offer on-site and off-site services. The community area we have in our clubhouse is designed so that we can actually bring folks in that do not live there and offer them services if needed. Excuse me, please.
I'd like to add that Community Counseling Center, we have over 40 programs. And so these individuals, depending on what their needs, would have access to any of those programs. So it's not limited to case management, it's psychiatry, it's outpatient therapy, we have substance use programs, just all kinds of employment for our consumers, just an array of services. So.
Great, thank you. And we have John Hudak here. John, if you'd like to add anything, please feel free to jump in. John's been an integral part of this process from the start, as has Sharon. I will be the developer on this. I specialize in development of affordable housing. Since 1989, I've had 32 successful developments. Probably the last 5 or 6 years, the thrust of affordable housing has been to include social services. I've done partnerships with other social service organizations in Troy, Missouri, and Farmington and Jackson. The co-developer / ownership entity of this development will be the Cape Girardeau Area Housing Committee. And we've discussed their long involvement in the community, and this is the first step forward to form an ownership group out of that committee. The long-term goal of this committee is to form a development arm and be able to develop and own affordable housing in this community, and to go forward with its own development department and ownership department. So this is kind of a first step in that direction. And also the long-term goal is to be a part of the purpose-built community, which I know the city is very interested in, and so is our group. We want to be a part of that going forward. Property management is being offered by our management company, Hartle Management Agency. We've been managing affordable housing since 1987, and I guess we're formed in probably 1979 or 80. We currently manage over 1,000 units. The primary service provider is the Community Counseling Center. The Community Counseling Center is our lead referral agency. Developments like this and blending in social services with apartments has to be very controlled and very precise, or it will not work. And even though we have 24 different service providers that will, we will make this housing available to their clients, but there has to be one gatekeeper, and that is the Community Counseling Center. So we will have the 10 set-aside units that we will fill with just their referrals and referrals from the rest of our housing group. The other 30 units are available to the general public with a preference for our other members of the community that have housing needs in their universe. Supportive services, as Sharon touched on, there's a vast array of supportive services. The long-term goal is to empower the Cape Area Housing Committee to develop, own, and manage future affordable housing communities that will serve the clientele of all members of the committee as well as the community as a whole. Thank you. Any questions?
Just comments. Number one, thank you, and those that went for all the hours you spent in the training as you went. And a thank you to the leadership of John Hudak at Community Counseling in this and all other things that Community Counseling does. Such a great service to have in our community.
Well, it's been our goal to go in this direction with the committee for a long time, and the institute that we went to was the catalyst that brought it all together. We first approached the whole group with this idea and asked for a show of hands on who wanted to participate. Everyone in the room said, "Great idea, we need it, boy, let's go for it, let's do it, let's do it." I said, "Great, who's in?" And we kind of were struggling getting a hand to come up. And then John and Sharon took that first step. And after that, we were able to get more participation. And all of these 24 members of our committee have very full plates. They're very passionate about their work. They have a tremendous workload. Putting housing on top of that is another big complicated step. So it wasn't easy to raise that hand first, and but when they do, others follow, and it has come together. We've already set our sights on next year and trying to
I know you have.
blend in our efforts with the city as a whole.
Well, Council, that proposal for the resolution of support is on item 6 tonight, and I'll, for one, certainly wholeheartedly support that resolution and give you the ability to move forward.
Any other questions?
Other questions, comments?
I think exciting news, exciting news and a great project, and I can't believe you got that many people there to actually collaborate. That's a monumental task in itself.
Well, and Chad has had has taken on some local support with in the area also with behavioral support on site.
Thank you.
So that's good. We appreciate your partnership. Okay. Appearances on any item not on the agenda. Jump. Marla?
Mayor, Council, I'm Marla Mills with Old Town Cape, and I'd like to discuss briefly with you the potential redevelopment of the Esquire Theater. According to the Southeast Missourian, there's been no credible redevelopment opportunities at that theater for about 30 years. And I know personally, I've been working on it since I started my position in 2006. So, but it looks like we finally have a very credible opportunity, and we wanted to bring that to you tonight. I can't speak enough about the importance of this theater to our community and especially to the downtown, but to the whole community. Aside from the economic impact, should we lose it, we lose a connection to our past and to our memories. And should we save it, we build a strong connection to a very authentic place. And that does a lot for a community. So, and then I mentioned the economic impact, and that's important as well. So I'd like to introduce a team with a proven track record of success and let them tell you just a little bit about their plans and vision. It's TAG Development Team, and Kara Nagar will come up and explain their vision and plans to you.
Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you for having us. My name is Kara Nagar. I'm with TAG Development Team. There's 4 members of us. 2 are sitting behind me. My partners and brothers, RJ and Eric Clements, and the 4th member is Shanna Starnes. We are a group of 4 people who are self-starters. We started investing in Cape back in 2008. We have our own construction company. So we started renovating, designing multiple properties from single family, duplexes, quads, to historic renovation. We renovated the Vaseline Suites down off of Broadway, which has 24 units and a commercial storefront.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. That was a great project.
That was one key corner, so I had to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that. We were lucky enough to win some city and state awards for that renovation. From there, it fueled another historic renovation in a small town called Bloomsdale, Missouri. We created, designed, renovated, and built on 2 restaurants under one building. There we managed multiple events through our event space and outdoor area. It was a very high-risk project that we took on, and in a small town. Town of only 500 people. And the business that we created taking on that risk, we service 10,000 people a month in our restaurants.
Nice facility.
Yeah. So it's been a great project, a lot of wonderful experience. We know from experience when you do positive things in a community, it can only be a success. So we're here today to hopefully make an impact in the city of Cape and have another positive community experience. It is a high-risk project as well. For the last 2 years, we have been doing due diligence on this project. It's by far the most research we've ever done on a single project. And that project is the Esquire Theaters. We have visited multiple theaters in the region. We have done tons of market research, visited with multiple consultants, and we've been on a part of a team that conducted a feasibility study to get to this point today. So we've not entered into this lightly, and our plan for the Esquire Theater is to restore the building, to create a space for local and touring bands to come in, as well as a venue space for events and corporate events, for weddings, and corporate events. We know that there's a lot of demand and research for those areas. We know it's going to make a positive impact. It's a very unique space. As most of you know, you probably have some sort of connection in the past to that building in here. When we first started investing in Cape back in 2008, my brother, RJ, actually I point him out, he pointed to this really ugly rundown building as we entered Broadway, and he said, one day I would love to own that building and restore it. And I thought, are you crazy? But fast forward, and here we are 10 years later. We've got a passion for restoration. We have a vision. We know how to get a project done, but we need the support of the city to make it happen. So, thank you.
Okay.
And now I'm going to introduce John.
And I'm going to wrap up.
Mr. Maynard.
Again, thanks for listening to us tonight. And quickly, all I'm going to say is this, is if you are as excited about the opportunity to see this theater come to life again, here's our only ask tonight. We're still working through some of the details, but our ask is allow us to work and continue to work with TAG Development Group, work with staff, and bring something to you by your next meeting that is some type of a development plan for you folks to take a look at. I've met with this group lots of times over the last several years, and they do things not only with their mind, but with their heart. And they make sure that they know what they're doing. They've done tremendous research on this deal. And we as a group are excited about the possibilities of what can happen. So again, all we're asking for tonight is give us a nod, tell us to work with staff, tell us to bring something back for you folks to review, and we will have it for you by the next meeting.
Bring it on.
All right, fantastic. Any questions that we can answer tonight?
I think this would just make a phenomenal gateway to our downtown area. Particularly with the unique design of that building, its Art Deco architecture, the facade, the marquee. I mean, that would just be amazing.
It is. That's
Another game changer.
That's a perfect word. Gateway to Broadway. It is, and we've got experience with these people.
Absolutely.
That Vasterling Suite project has been a huge success and was done right, and thrilled with it.
Mr. Fox.
My first date with my wife was almost 48 years.
We've had some of those discussions, haven't we, about the memories that are in that building?
I went and saw Return of the Jedi in that theater.
I snuck into The Exorcist at a very young age when I shouldn't have been in there. So. All right, anything else?
I think it's great. Bring it to us. So we just hope we can, between the city, Old Town Cape, and the group, be able to put it, as you said, it's a high risk project, and we all got to really understand that. But we want to be a part of it, in my opinion.
All right, we'll bring something back for you to look at. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else to appear before the council on any item that is not on the agenda? Okay, let's do the agenda.
Very good. We have no presentations tonight, council. Communications and reports. I have several, but I'll cover them at the meeting rather than go through them twice. You have things you'd like to share, council?
I've got a few. I've got, we had the monthly Board of Governor meeting for the Greater Cape Area Community Foundation. I want to go over a few things with that. Report on the daddy-daughter dance.
That used to be Lanzotti, report that.
Yeah. I'm going to give an update. Just I went to the Fraternal Order of Police monthly meeting last week. Just a high-level overview of that. And then that's all I got.
Good. Others?
I'd just like to share that I attended the annual NAACP banquet this past Saturday, and that was just an awesome event. If you've never been, you need to take advantage of it next year. But the speaker was phenomenal. Everything was first class, and I was just very, very impressed and glad I had an opportunity to be there.
Yeah, I had that on my list also. Shelley Moore, Councilwoman Shelley Moore was there. City Manager Scott Meyer was there, and myself. It was a good, positive evening with a speaker that I'd, at some point in time, like to sit him back down on our purpose-built project in some way, and because he said a lot of the right things. Shelley, right? So I had that too, but go ahead and do that. That'd be great. And I guess in your staff report, I kind of had it here, but you'll report on the award for the South Sprague Street Bridge. You got that on your list? Okay. So that's all I had.
All right. The others? Oh. All right, we do have one public hearing tonight. Have our public hearing for the capital improvement program. So we're at that point now with, we brought it to you a few weeks ago and gotten your input and getting down the road of getting close to perfection. So tonight will be the hearing, then we'll take that and bring that back to you for approval either at one of the next two meetings. Our consent agenda tonight, we have the second and third readings of the rezoning on Themis Street the second and third for the rezoning on Hopper. We have the drainage easement out the old Sears Grand. Number 6 is the resolution of support for the project that you just heard about, Mr. Hartle. 7 is a release of lien for a federal home loan affordable, the HERO Act. Number 8 is the contract with St. Louis Bridge regarding the Sloan Creek Bridge superstructure. Been looking for that for quite some time. Excited to have that upgraded.
That's great.
Number 9 will be our yearly concrete repair work. I think you've seen those projects to do that, to be awarding of that project.
Got a question on that.
Yes.
You know, we hear a lot about neighborhood streets and concrete street repair and so forth. We got a really good bid there of $1 million, the engineer estimate of $500 million. Staff, does that give us $500,000 that we can spend on the rest of this year with odd requests that council and others get, and Public Works identifies or work ahead a little bit?
We'll have to look at that. I know that we have, list of street repairs that are needed elsewhere in the city. So if there is a savings, we will be looking to use that money in those other locations.
I know if you have some money in your pocket, I know that, in fact, I turned one in today on a street that I was told about over the weekend, and I drove it, and gosh, Public Works has put asphalt, it's sinking and cracked and concrete, and they put asphalt on it, and the asphalt's sinking, and there's just there are small areas, but it needs it now, So just a request.
Absolutely. We have a few other contracts to bring as well. So
Yeah,
we'll
and
need to
there,
balance those,
but
and
that is the
that's
key
good
thing.
news.
That's a good bid.
Yeah, it is
It's a very good bid.
news that
Yeah.
there might be a possibility of some. Number 10 is the public hearing, to set the public hearing for the redevelopment of Cape Dogwood. You saw that in the Southeast Missourian, some reporting on that, and this moves that forward to call a public hearing for the future of incentives in order to have that project move forward.
Another exciting development for our city.
Number 11 is resolution for runway lighting. Number 12 is the utility agreement for the lighting rehabilitation project. And then number 13 is the letter of agreement with Southeast, a yearly activity where we do a historic resource survey, work with the university, with some of their students, and into another area of town. So that's positive. Are there anything on the consent agenda that you'd like removed to discuss further? If not, we have just one new ordinance tonight, and it is a special warranty deed for the sale of fire station.
And that's good news also.
Speaking of good biz.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, council, any other things to come before us during a study session? If not, we do need to have a closed session night, legal actions, litigation, confidential communications with our legal counsel, property transactions pursuant to revised statute 610-021, numbers 1 and 2, if I could have a motion.
So moved.
By Guard and seconded by Fox. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we'll stand adjourned and reconvene at 7 p.m. Thank you all for being here.